Good morning, folks. My name is Tom Pitteritt. I'm a vice president at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and I'm the secretary at the WSTA. We'll start with a few thank yous. We have our panel sponsors, Nutanix and OutSystems. Thanks very much for your help. And then our password sponsor, Nemertes. And then we have a special thank you to Johna Johnson from Nemertes Research, who's going to be leading our discussion today, and we thank her for taking time from her schedule to moderate the panel discussion today.
Great, Tom, and I believe my video just went ahead and started there. Yep, there we go. Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. We're delighted to be doing this virtually and sharing everything with folks online in this new virtual world. So just to roll out the agenda for the next 90 minutes or so, I will be presenting a little bit of our findings around cloud, DevOps, Agile, and how that's moving in the organizations that we work with. And then I'm going to introduce the panelists, or more accurately, I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves one by one, so you'll get to know who's who, and then we'll jump into the discussion. From the prep call that we've done, this is going to be a very lively discussion. We've got a lot of great insight. Even the prep call was very exciting, so I'm really looking forward to some great things from our panelists. So with that, I'm going to jump in and go ahead and share screen. So let me scroll up. There we go. So this is from Nemertes' 2019-2020 Cloud Network and Infrastructure Research Study. Just a reminder to the folks who are on the call and may not be familiar with Nemertes, we are a research advisory firm. We've been partnered with the WSTA for many years. I could even say many decades, but that would be embarrassingly long time. We conduct primary research into what organizations are doing, financial services firms, WSTA member firms, and others, to understand best practices across various emerging technologies, including cloud and DevOps. So I'm sharing with you some of the findings of what people are doing, just to get a baseline table stakes so that as we move into our discussion, we don't have to reintroduce some concepts that we can sort of cover here. So first, what we found is that more successful organizations are more likely to be in the cloud. Your first question is going to be, what do you mean by more successful organizations? Of the 400 odd organizations that we interviewed or surveyed, we came up with a success metric that really came up to, we looked at both availability and, importantly, reliability, the ability to stay up and running under all circumstances, exclusive of scheduled outages. And as you'll see, there's some significant differences between people who have high reliability and ordinary rank and file organizations. And one of the questions that we ask ourselves is, why are these companies more successful? Why are their operations more reliable? And in fact, one of the key factors is they're running less of the enterprise workload in the data center. This is a big deal. And as we talk about DevOps and Agile, you'll see it's what's the right word? It's intertwined essentially with the concept of cloud and also the concept of public cloud. Not exclusively, but certainly there's a deep connection. We also saw that successful organizations were more likely to target the data center, desktops, and IoT with DevOps projects, and we'll talk about the state of DevOps in just a second. And very importantly, they have more ad hoc automation under change control, 70 versus 50, and code management. In other words, they're heavily investing in automation, and we'll be talking about that and ways to do it shortly as well. And they rely on a standardized automation toolkit. So all good things for successful organizations to be doing. So they're also seeing savings. Now, many of you are watching this going, hang on, Johna, we know better than that. We moved to the cloud and we are seeing that our costs went up, not down. Yes, that's the typical scenario. That's usually what happens. However, successful organizations tend to see savings, and they spend less to get more work done on cloud. The top third on average spend 60% of what they'd spend in the data center for infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. They spend 62% on software as a service of what they'd spend in the data center, which is actually very, very interesting because that means they're getting a 40% roughly cost savings compared to most organizations, which are not seeing a cost savings at all, but they're seeing actually an increase in costs. And again, I'm stressing this because in order to see these cost savings, you have to be doing some of the things that successful companies are doing. So let me wrap up here and then talk about what some of those things are. Interestingly, more successful companies are seeing 6 times as many service incidents, a service incident being something that breaks and requires attention. Even though they're making about as many changes as organizations generally. The key is that they're able to resolve them faster, which comes down to better understanding of what is where, meaning what workloads are located where, what data is located where, better knowledge of how things are interconnected, so what are the links between these things and where they are, and most importantly, better ability, better bulkheads or firewalls, better ability to contain the impact. This to me is actually one of the most exciting findings, because what it says is that folks that are operating in a cloud environment successfully are not dealing with a less dynamic environment, they're dealing with a more dynamic environment. They're just really good at handling it. And as we'll discuss in the panel session, one of the things that successful and effective DevOps and Agile allow you to do is successfully and effectively handle a dynamic environment more generally. And we'll talk about ways to make that happen. So these are some of the key findings. Just as an indicator, we talk about percentage of workloads in the data center. Where would they be if they're not in the data center? Well, as we noted, 40% of the workloads are in the data center. Another 4% are in-house, but not in the data center, so in the edge or the legacy branch. What's the difference between an edge and a branch? Well, the edge is the new standardized shrink-wrapped edge computing architecture. The branch is the legacy branch, which is, typically a bunch of servers stuck under somebody's desk somewhere, which we don't like. We do like edge, we don't like legacy branch. 27% of the workloads are in software as a service and 29% are in infrastructure and platform as a service. Now, just a reminder to everyone, there are multiple definitions of cloud. I don't really want the panel to necessarily get bogged down in some basic definitions. So cloud can be either public or private. If it's private, the difference between a standard data center and cloud operations is whether or not you have cloud orchestration and automation and automated management. So if you don't have cloud orchestration internally, you just have a data center, you do not have private cloud. What we found over the past couple of years is the majority of organizations that claim to have private cloud now actually do. There was a lag of about 3 years before that actually happened. And again, the kind of key metric is, do you have cloud orchestration and management? And folks do. So private cloud in the data center involves cloud orchestration and management. Infrastructure and platform as a service is literally what it sounds like. You are getting the cloud compute, storage, network services, and or platform services such as database services. You are piling everything else on there, so you're running your virtual machines in the virtual OS that they're providing you. Software as a service, of course, is when the cloud provider, is providing you the application on a monthly fee hosted somewhere else. So, classic example is Salesforce, but there's plenty of other software as a service versions. So if you kind of think of the giant umbrella, what is cloud? The big split is public-private. Private is something that happens in the data center that includes cloud orchestration and management. If it's public, the question is how far up the stack the provider is delivering services. At the bottom is infrastructure, in the middle is platform, and at the top is just the software. And also it has to do with ownership and management and maintenance responsibilities. For infrastructure and platform, you require more of the ownership and management, and for software, the provider provides that. Obviously, for DevOps, if you're doing a lot of the development, you're going to be operating in an infrastructure or platform as a service environment. All right, enough about basic definitions. Let's move on. What's going on with DevOps? Well, in our research study, which again encompassed about 400 organizations in about 12 countries, 43.3% of development projects now are using or claim to be using DevOps. Almost 50%, 43.7% of programmers claim to be DevOps and just over 47, almost 48% of programmers come from central IT versus lines of business. However, we do have a lot of research digging into non-corporate IT DevOps programming and the value that that can bring to a business. So definitely worth considering what you're doing in the business. What are some of the practices that correlate with success? My cybersecurity friends will be delighted to hear that code security analytics is one of the top ones. We conducted this research at the end of 2019, so we were sort of in the fall of 2019. So you'll see that 42% said that they had code security analytics, and another almost 30% said they'd have it by the end of 2019. So that says roughly 60% of folks, 60 to 70% of folks have it. It's about the same for all the other practices. However, I want to highlight that when we look at when we look at success correlations, typically we look at that blue bar, which is people who have it, because you can really only correlate what people actually have, not what they say they're going to do with success. So the most common is continuous integration, continuous delivery, which again is one of the standard components of DevOps. And then scrums and sprints, other organizational ones. Finally, automated security testing is lagging a bit behind between scrums and automated security testing. Those are both less common. I would argue should become more common for overall success, and we'll talk about that.